This is Bold Talk Business Radio. Ladies and gentlemen, the CEO of Bold Marketing Solutions, Donna Anselmo.
This is Donna Anselmo, and you are back listening to Bold Talk Business Radio on the Talk to Me station, AM 1060 WMEL. Thanks for coming back to join us after our first segment, which was with Jason Ryan, talking Space Talk today with Jason Ryan, Pete Anselmo, and a little bit of Wayne West in our engineering booth here today. So we have a new segment on the show and a new topic, and that is about communication. We have on the line, waiting to speak with you all, is a former TV news journalist, Roshini Rajkumar, who is a public speaking expert and a frequent guest on TV and radio programs providing analysis about effective communication, fixing business blunders, and politicians or other high-profile people's communication styles. Roshini is also a licensed attorney and holds a bachelor's degree from Boston College. She lives in Minneapolis, where she hosts News and Views on WCCO Radio, CBS Minneapolis, and writes a monthly personal brand column for the Twin Cities Business publication. So, Roshini, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Donna.
Oh, I love it, and I know that we had done an interview some time ago, and I thought it was great and wanted to repeat that today because some of our listeners didn't ever get to hear that. So I want to talk with you a little bit about your book, Communicate That. First of all, I want to get that out to our listeners so they can look for it and check out your website. They're going to find out why they really want to read this book during our segment today. And Roshini Rajkumar, tell us how people develop that wow moment when they are looking to communicate and they really want people to connect with them. That's what I guess you call a wow. So talk to me about what is a wow moment for our listeners.
Well, you know, it's really authentic. It's authentic communication. And a wow moment for you is different from your husband's, is different from one of your listeners. But if you really think about down to the basics, we all have communication strengths or assets, and we all have communication challenges. So what we're always working toward is blowing up the strengths. We have those challenges, and we want to work around them and reduce them, but if we really focus on blowing up the strengths, then the challenges start to sort of naturally disappear. They may not completely go away, but people are less focused on them because they're so captivated by the powerful speaker or communicator you can be.
So let me ask you a question, Roshini. Talk a little bit about what are some of the challenges that people have to overcome when they're communicating.
A big challenge, Donna, are verbal tics. Think about this, the ums, the ahs, the other tics that people may use in their life. I had a client once, an executive client, who said that in fact, I don't even know that he knew it, but his boss had shared with me that he used the word cool really often, too often, and it really wasn't becoming for an executive at his level. So that was one of his verbal tics, was to say cool instead of just closing his mouth or giving some other word of affirmation when one of his employees did a good job or said a good thing.
And our Wayne West, our engineer in our booth here today, has a pet peeve, I know, which is the use of the word basically.
Don't get me started.
Basically, it's a verbal tick.
I'm a 911 dispatcher, and I hear that so much these days, Roshini. It's well, basically, my house is on fire, or basically, my car has basically hit a tree. No, it's not basically.
It just is. Yeah, anything that less is more is one of my lines. Anything that we can just get at the meat of the sentence or the meat of the message. So just say it. Don't tell me you're going to say it. Don't say, I believe blank, blank, blank. Just say what you believe without adding those extraneous words. So if you're writing, and a lot of us write, even if we're going to communicate verbally, we still have notes in front of us. We may have a script or bullet points. Try to have as few words as possible down in front of you to get the message across. And I say use subject, verb, object sentences. Just start with, my house is on fire, instead of something before my house. And that's what we're getting at, the really streamlined, less is more kind of sentences, so that we can hear you and see you. We're always working against distractions.
So I want to ask a question. As you're talking about that. Does that mean that we're not going to add a segue in a conversation? How do you bridge the gap when you're trying to eliminate extraneous words and you're going from one concept to another?
You can absolutely have transitions. We need transitions. We don't want to sound like we're just jarring, right? These are those verbal tics, so the basicallys, the just. I'm just calling to tell you this. All you have to do is say, hi, Donna, how are you? Not, I'm just calling to see how you are, right? So those extra words, but really start with the clear verbal tics, the ums, the ahs. What you can do is start listening to how many times you're hearing that in someone you're speaking with or from someone you're speaking with. Start to do little hashtags and count them. All of a sudden, when you start to hear it in others, you will automatically listen more to your own verbal tics. In place of the ums and ahs, I ask people to try to just close their mouths, give a little silence. That pause can be very effective. It also gives a break to your listener from your voice, and it makes you then become more effective. So they're really listening to the words you want to say.
I love that idea about having the pause. I know that I have worked on that myself over the years, and I found that slowing down my speech really helped to eliminate the ums and ahs in my discussions. So remember that.
Yeah, so slowing it down is one of the biggest things. I'm a fast talker also, so that is one of the things that I noticed about myself early on. And we can fix these things. We all have the power to make ourselves more polished. And you asked, what does that wow mean? Well, that wow is when you are your best self, visually, verbally, with a commanding presence, what I call owning your space. You don't even have to be very big to own your space, but good posture, killing the verbal tics, and other ways that you work against distraction and help the person with whom you're communicating really hear you and see you. Those things then will be definite ingredients for a wow moment.
Roshini, was there a defining moment in your life when you realized the personal power in communication?
Donna, there wasn't just one moment. I've always been a lover of words and language, and I probably should credit my father for that back to kindergarten when he would make me sit there and read every word in the Purple Monster books. I don't know why I remember these Purple Monster books so well, and I couldn't leave until I got every word right. You know how some parents might let you get a few words wrong, but no, I had to get every word right. And that was pressure for a 5-year-old, and so that probably planted some seeds for the love of language and starting to really listen and notice. And that is probably what just got me started in that. And then, I was just drawn to law and politics, and eventually had my career in television news, and now I'm a communication coach, coaching people, mostly business people, with their communication, whether it's for the media or in front of different audiences. So everything I'm doing, either I'm communicating or I'm helping others communicate. And I've seen the power from people who are just starting out in life to very high-level executives and business owners. When they can clean up their message and really be authentic and direct and intentional, it boosts their brand, it boosts their confidence, and it just confirms for me how powerful strong communication can be.
So you mentioned authenticity. Let's talk about the communication styles of the current presidential contenders. How are their styles different? How does their spoken language match up with their body language? What are we getting from the people who are out there on the presidential circuit now?
Do we have enough time?
I know, really. No kidding. Good question. Well, let's start with one of the guys who's getting a lot of headlines, and that's Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump is very authentic to himself, but you have to ask yourself, do you want that in a president? Do you want someone who is antagonistic? Do you want someone who's kind of a shouter? Do you want someone who yells at journalists? That's what we then, the American people, have to ask ourselves. He's authentic to himself, so I give him credit for that. But his issue, and what I lay out in the book, my IAP formula, what is his intent? The I is the intent. The I is about you. If your intent is to win the presidency, or to, in this case, win the Republican nomination, we have to go along the formula. Then the next step is the audience analysis, and the P of the IAP is powerful performance. Well, he's performing in the way he wants to perform. He's not necessarily adjusting his performance to the audience. So a good communicator stays authentic to him or herself, but understands who is the audience in front of him or her, adjusts the delivery so they can perform powerfully. The performance is always about the audience. So, Donna, think about even you. Whenever you're putting together and gathering guests and ideas for your radio show, you know that some things play better on radio versus print or TV. So you are going to talk about those topics, or you're going to have guests that can handle radio. If you had a guest who was really mealy-mouthed and you couldn't understand them, you probably wouldn't invite them to be on the radio, because you understand your audience needs to hear and understand and comprehend. So you want to perform with that guest in a way that connects with the audience. So getting back to the presidential candidates, that's the same lens that we can ask about each of these men and women.
Tell me a little bit about when people see a disconnect between what people say and what they do, or maybe what they intend.
Yeah, and that happens always, or often. I call that the subtextual message. So when you go out to either give a speech or do a radio show or talk to your boss or your employee, you have certain words you're using. And let's say the message is, I want a raise. And you go and you look like a slob, and you slouch, and you sound really nasally, and you deliver the I want to raise language to your boss. The subtextual messages around that say slob, they say didn't really care, they say all these things you're not trying to deliver. So chances are your intent of getting that raise will not happen, because you did not perform that message in the way the boss needed to really hear it and see it. Versus if you went in a great suit or an outfit that was appropriate for your business, but you looked polished, you had your head held up high, you walked in and you said, "Hi, boss, it's been a great year. I've brought in an additional $50,000 or whatever it is for this company. I want a raise. Let's talk about it." You can kind of see and visualize the difference there, right?
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about something that has had me thinking. Your title, your book title, Communicate That. Your toolbox for powerful presence. Define that. What are you talking about when you're talking about communicating that?
You know, that's a great question. No one's really ever asked me that. I've done hundreds of interviews. The that probably comes down to your intent. So if you have an intent that you want to deliver and you want to accomplish, let's communicate that. And the book and everything I'm about is helping people communicate that intent in a way that is powerful, that lacks distraction, and that is also very authentic.
I know, Roshini Rajkumar, that you love doing talk radio. And I know from your book that you like doing segments like this. Tell our listeners why that is.
It is amazing to me. I see it day in and day out, the results. When people focus on just a little more polish, or even, if you don't like that word polish, a little more intention with their emails, with their phone calls, with their one-on-one conversations, even before you get to a big presentation moment. Of course we want you to be intentional there, but even in these other zones, if you just think about the words you use, maybe using better grammar, maybe not using emojis and smiley faces, but just absolutely writing a powerful sentence with great, concise language. Being intentional will absolutely get you better results. And every time you see your intention live out and become a result, we gain confidence. Imagine if everyone in their own worlds could dedicate to that intentionality, gaining that confidence after they see these wins, they see these wows. That confidence then translates into happier lives. It translates into maybe more money, maybe a promotion, maybe a happier, more copacetic life with your partner or your kids. So it is amazing. And I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say if we just focus on more intentional, powerful communication, it will improve the world we live in, but for sure, for starters, that individual world that you are a part of.
Intention is definitely key. Practice is so important also for building that confidence that you speak of. The more times that you practice, that you begin to build on a small win, and that next small win turns into a bigger win and a bigger win, then you do develop a stronger sense of confidence. And I'm glad that you brought that up. I want you to talk a little bit about not only intention, but about inflection. Let's talk about how people's tone of voice influences what they're saying and what their results are.
And that all comes under the heading of what I call vocal behavior. So vocal behavior is more than just your voice. It is how you sound, how you are received, and how you are perceived. So it gets back to those subtextual messages. If you have a certain message to deliver and you do it with a rich, hard palate voice. And what do I mean by hard palate? I'm going to get kind of mechanical on you and your listeners. If you take your tongue and kind of rub it up on the bony part on the roof of your mouth, that's the hard palate. But if you swipe the tongue up a little bit where it hits the soft area right under your nose, that's the squishy, soft palate. When we get a nasal voice, what's happening is we're projecting words up the soft palate. We want to actually project out through the front, out through the hard palate, so that we have a richer, deeper delivery, a deeper vocal behavior. And that translates into more credibility. Think about some of the voices you hear on TV, in the movies, or even in your day-to-day life. When you hear someone with a really squealy or nasally voice, they just naturally have less credibility for you. You may not even realize it, but that's the subtextual message that kind of vocal behavior is sending. Versus, do you remember James Earl Jones? He's the voice of Darth Vader.
Oh, sure.
Think of Darth Vader, right? No one's going to mess with him. He is definitely a badass. Right?
It's a commanding, powerful voice.
Commanding, powerful voice. And not all men are going to sound like James Earl Jones or like Darth Vader, but that's kind of a model, hard palate voice. And over on the female side, I think of voices like a Lauren Bacall, who's now passed away, but she had that really credible, deep female voice. So if you think about those things, we may never sound exactly like that, but if you find that happy medium for yourself, what is that deeper, richer, more hard palate voice? And again, it's baby steps. You don't have to work on all of these things all at once. But if you start with killing the ums and the ahs, slow down a little, start thinking about that deeper, richer, hard palate voice, and you give yourself maybe a weekly goal. This week, I'm going to work on this thing. And as you see results, it's like muscle memory. You learn something that you're teaching your physical space to do, and then you just naturally start sounding that way, or start reducing the distractions that might have been part of your vocal behavior in the past.
So start today by thinking about the intention you're setting for your voice control and your communication. Roshini Rajkumar, tell me what your secret is for performing under pressure. Very often we're, in an environment where we've got to make a case. We have high stakes that we're dealing with. We have to make an impression, and the impression has to be good. What do you want our listeners to know about performing under pressure?
A couple of things. First of all, play to your strengths. If you are funny, use humor. If you are not funny, then now is not the time in a pressure cooker situation to try to be funny, because it won't work. And I say that really seriously, actually, because if humor is a strength, use it. If interesting statistics, you have those at your fingertips. If that's a strength, use that. So play to your strengths, but also I'm always going to go back to the IAP formula, that intent, audience analysis, powerful performance. You can arm yourself by doing a very deep dive on the audience analysis. Find out as much as you possibly can about the audience that's going to be in front of you, whether that's one person or many, whether you're live with them or on the phone with them. All of those things are so important, every bit of data that you can gather so that you can customize that pressure cooker performance to really hit home the kinds of things that matter. If you are a Gators fan, for instance, and you know you're with an opposing or a rival alumni, don't wear Gators colors, right? I mean, it can be that simple in your performance. Play to your strengths, but really fine-tune the delivery based on what that audience needs or wants or you believe will sway them, and just customize to that audience.
You've been listening to Bold Talk Business Radio with Donna Anselmo, Pete Anselmo, Wayne West in our studio, and our guest expert, Roshini Rajkumar. And I want to thank Roshini for being here, but I also want her to be able to tell you very quickly how you can get in touch with her and how you can get a copy of her great book, Communicate That.
Well, the easiest way, Donna, is to go to our website, ownyourwow.com, because that is what I'm all about. If you can really be intentional with your communication, you too can own your wow. So that's the easiest way. We've got a lot of other free content on there as well as the book is on there.
Well, thanks for being with us today, Roshini, and we'll have you come back again. We are getting ready to wrap up our Bold Talk Business segment, and every week on Bold Talk Business Radio, in addition to the Success Tip of the Week, we give a book recommendation of the week, and this week's book recommendation is definitely Communicate That. Get a copy of that book. Check out Roshini's website. I want you also to think about what we're going to do, and another way to communicate is with infographics. And that's my mentoring moment for the week. And an infographic is something that is written instead of in words, it's written in pictures. So infographics are graphic visual representations of information, data, and knowledge intended to help people simplify the process of absorbing knowledge. We're going to talk more about infographics in next week's segment. And I want to thank our guests this week, Jason Ryan of Spaceflight Insider and Roshini Rajkumar of Roshini Performance Group, for sharing their insight with us today. And I want you to make it a bold week with my bold formula for success. Believe in yourself, open to opportunities, love whatever you're putting effort into, and dare to do the things that will make a real difference in your life and your work. Use all good thoughts as your daily mantra, and remind yourself that you can choose all good thoughts and choose your actions and choose to bring more positivity, success, and satisfaction to your life and work. I'm Donna Anselmo. You've been listening to Bold Talk Business Radio on AM 1060 WMEL. I'll see you on the radio again next Tuesday between 1 and 2 p.m. Until then, choose to be positive, choose to make every week a bold week, and choose to tune in again next Tuesday to Bold Talk Business Radio. We'll see you then on the radio. Come on back and visit with us next week.